On July 7, 2007, Benedict XVI issued the motu proprio Summorum Pontificum. This Vatican document allowed priests everywhere to celebrate the Old, or the Tridentan Latin Mass, using the 1962 Missal, the last version in force before the Second Vatican Council. Catholics dissatisfied with the new order of Mass promulgated by Paul VI in 1969 were ecstatic. Websites promoting the Old Mass proliferated. Members of a younger, more conservative generation of clergy spoke positively about their new experience of offering Mass in the Old Rite, its dignity, its reverence, its beauty, its deep roots in Catholic tradition. In these comments, one could also sense something else, perhaps unintended. The implication that the Mass of Paul VI, in comparison, did not possess all these wonderful qualities. This leads to the question, why? The answer to that question is the subject of this book, and of the little overview of the book we will be providing with this series of 14 videos. In brief, it will be this. The doctrinal ideas behind the new Rite are different from the doctrinal ideas behind the old Rite. These new doctrinal ideas affected the externals of the new Rite, its prayers, and its ritual gestures. So, if you perceive that in the old Rite, the treatment of the Blessed Sacrament is more respectful, the actions of the priest are more dignified, and the atmosphere is more otherworldly when compared with the new Rite, the reason is this. The new Rite is based on a new theology of the real presence, of the priesthood, and of the general purpose of the Mass. In circles where the Old Mass is celebrated under the aegis of the motu proprio, these profound theological differences are usually passed over in silence. Instead, the motives offered for adhering to the Old Mass tend to be reduced to beauty, tradition, sentiment, or preference. Work of Human Hands was written precisely in order to put these theological issues front and center in any discussion of the reform of the Mass, past, present, and future. The principal thesis, or underlying contention for Work of Human Hands, may be summed up as follows. The Mass of Paul VI, A, destroys Catholic doctrine in the minds of the faithful, and in particular Catholic doctrine concerning the holy sacrifice of the Mass, the priesthood, and the real presence. And B, permits or prescribes grave irreverence. This proposition will strike many listeners as rather blunt, but it summarizes the principal objections traditionalists have made against the Mass of Paul VI ever since it first appeared in 1969. And it is borne out from a close examination of the new Rite. What are called liturgical abuses, departures from official norms for the Mass of Paul VI, won't figure in our discussion here, nor will the various vernacular translations, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Instead, we will look at the official Latin version of the Missal of Paul VI and analyze it in detail by comparing and contrasting it with the traditional Latin Mass. We'll examine the prayers and ceremonies of the Mass of Paul VI in their order of appearance in the Rite itself. For explanations, we'll often be able to turn to commentaries written by the liturgists who were directly involved in creating the new Mass. These are often quite revealing. Traditionalist critiques of the new Mass that have appeared over the past 40 years limited their scope to the ordinary of the Mass itself, that is, the parts that remain more or less the same from day to day. Work of Human Hands, however, goes far beyond that and presents a detailed critique of the changes that the Mass of Paul VI introduced into the propers of the Mass. That is, the vast body of prayers and scripture readings that change from Sunday to Sunday and feast to feast. Here, too, a real theological shift is evident. Work of human hands also connects many of the liturgical changes to the errors of modernism, the early 20th century heresy that reemerged triumphant during and after Vatican II. In the liturgy, said Archbishop Antonelli, who signed the decree promulgating the Mass of Paul VI, every word and every gesture conveys a theological idea. What theological ideas do the words and gestures of the Mass of Paul VI convey? In the broadcasts that follow, we will provide a sampler of some of the answers found in Work of Human Hands, a theological critique of the Mass of Paul VI. Our next video will be entitled The Change Agent.